Hi everyone, good morning to all of you. Welcome to UN Digital Class. I am Rasmi Ranjan Mishra, lecturer and head of the Department of Bachelor of Business Administration. Today I am going to discuss a new subject of human resource management. So on today's discussion we are going to present a separate chapter that is relating to separation, retrenchment and layoff. So we will discuss one by one, listen carefully. Separation of an employee exists when the service of an employee comes to an end because of one reason or other. The termination of employees from membership of the organization is referred as employee separation. The rate at which employees leave the organization is measured by the rate of employee separation. So, separation, that means when one employee leaves the organization due to one reason or other. So that is called as separation. That means when employee separated from the organization, he or she is no more to provide service due to any other reason, either from organization point of view or from personal point of view of the employee. That is called as separation. So when employee leave the organization or the membership of the employee is terminated or comes to an end in the organization, then that is called as employee separation. And the rate at which the employee is separated, that is called as a separation rate or employee separation rate. So now we are going to discuss, if separation is made in an organization, what is the cost of employee separation. The employee separation is always resulted in some cost. The intensity of the incurring cost varies on the basis of a decision of the management that either the empty position of separated employee is replaced by new employee or the position may be eliminated permanently. So following are some of the costs that are linked with the employee separation. One is recruitment cost, second one is selection cost, third one is training cost, and the fourth one is separation cost. So when employee separated from an organization, that means the membership of the employees comes to end, that is a case of separation. And when separation is made in an organization, that must involve certain amount of a cost. That means the intensity of incurring cost is made on the basis of the decision by the management. Either there is a case of empty position, that means one employee is permanently separated from the organization, or when one employee is separated, another new employee is replaced or substituted, and in that case there must be certain cost involved, that is in the place of recruitment or selection. So the position may be eliminated permanently. So in that case certain cost involved by the organization. The cost involvement is, one is recruitment cost, that means when employee is separated due to any negative reason or whatever may be the service provided, the organization terminate that employee. In that case, in place of that existing employee, one new employee is recruited. So for recruitment there must be certain amount of cost involved by the organization. The second one is selection cost. After recruitment is made, the employee must have been selected by the organization. So during the time of a selection process, certain cost also involved, that is called as selection cost, and that is on account of employee separation. Then training cost, when a new employee is replaced by old employee on account of a separation. So in that case organization must have to provide training to that new employee. So for that cost the trainer must be arranged, and a organization has to involve certain amount of expenditure. Then separation cost, separating the employee involves certain amount of expenditure, that is called as a separation cost. So there may be different head of expenditure or cost involved on account of a separation in an organization. Next part, that is benefits of employee separation. So when separation made, in one hand organization involves certain amount of expenditure, but in other cases organization also derive certain amount of benefits. So what are the benefits derived on account of employee separation, that we will discuss. On one hand there are costs attached with the employee separation, but on the other hand there are some resulting benefits too. So following are some of the employee benefits that are associated with the employee separation. That the first benefit is labor cost is reduced. That means when organization having no need of recruiting the employee, that means the employee must be separated from the organization. That means there is no need of employees by the organization must have been separated, or employee must be separated, and when employee separated, the labor cost to certain extent reduced. That is one benefit. The second one is the employee who performs poorly are also replaced. That means those are not performing good for the organization. In that case, organization thinks that employee must be separated. So when the poor performance of the employee is done and organization separate that employee, in that case new employee must be joined, and there is a chance of providing better job to the organization. So separation when is made, in that case organization takes benefit. That means the new employee replaced in place of a poor performance of the employee. The third benefit is innovation is increased in the organization. That means when employee separated, in that case new employees must be recruited in place of a old employee. So there are certain chances, or organization having chance that new employee having more talented, more knowledgeous, and they can capture the present scenario or technology. So there is a chance of innovation of a new employee, and that is providing benefits to the organization. Then the diversity also enhanced in the organization. That means the new employee, when they recruit in the organization, they think different point of view and they implement their ideas as they are more talented or more knowledgeous. So that results diversity, and a separation when it is made, the diversity of the employee also increased in the organization, which cause one more benefit to the organization. Then we are going to discuss the types of employee separation. What are the various kinds of separation? There are two main types of employee separation on the basis of initiation of the employment relationship termination. So these two types of employee separation are as there. So basically the two main types of employee separation, one is voluntary, that means when employee himself or herself thinks to separate from the organization, and another one is involuntary separation. That means there is no compulsory, organization on account of a separate reason involuntary separate the employee. So what is voluntary separation and what is involuntary separation, that we will discuss. So voluntary separation means when an employee terminates the employment relationship, then this form of employee separation is known as voluntary separation. That means employee from his or her side thinks that he or she is no more to provide service. That may be different reason on account of separating from the organization, and that depends upon the employee mind. So that's why it is called as a voluntary separation. And voluntary separation is of two types, or there are two categories of voluntary separation. One is quit, another one is retirement. That means when employee quit the organization, that is a case of a voluntary separation. When employee voluntarily retired, that is a case of a voluntary retirement scheme, VRS, that is called as a voluntary separation. So what is quit and what is VRS, that we will discuss. Quit, when the employee himself initiates the separation, then it is termed as a quit or resignation. Simply we can say that when employee resigned from the organization during the time of providing service, that means he himself or she herself thinks that or initiate the separation process. So that is why it is called as a quit. There are some resignation which are avoidable and others which are unavoidable. So resignation may be avoidable resignation, or may be unavoidable situation, resignation must be made. So it is the responsibility of the management to look out the real reason of the resignation. So before providing resignation, the organization or the management must have to think into consideration that why there is a case of a resignation or employee quit the organization, and that is the basic responsibility of the management to find out the real reason or situation why employee quit or resigned from his or her service. And in such case, the exit interview is better to conduct, find out the reason of a resignation. So organization or management have to examine the different cases of interview, and it is better to conduct the interview process to find out the reason of resignation. The second one is retirement, which is called as voluntary retirement. Number of separation in the organization happen due to retirement. There must be clear rules of retirement. There may be compulsory retirement when an employee to retire after attaining a particular age. So retirement means when employee on attaining a certain age prescribed by the guideline or a rule, in that case that is called as a retirement. Forced retirement means when a person is found guilty in the court of law or breaks any service agreement, then has to retire forcibly irrespective of his age. But in case when one employee makes any guilty or organization found that employee is in a guilty situation as per the court of law or breaks any service rule agreement made by the employer during the time of employment, in that case organization forcibly makes the employee to retire from his service, whatever may be the age or whatever may be the position. So before attaining that age, organization force that employee to retire, and in that case that is called as a premature retirement. That means the employee becomes disabled to perform the job. So when there is a case of a premature retirement, in that case the employee is no more to perform the job, and he may be given the option to take retirement before his retirement age. So organization provides instruction to the employee that you may take retirement and take the benefits before attainment of a retirement age, as you are making any type of a disturbance or organization found that there is guilty or you make any type of a violation as per the law or as per the guideline prescribed by the organization. So these are the two cases that is called as a voluntary separation. The second part, that is involuntary separation. So what does it mean? When employer of an organization ends the employment relationship with any employee, then this employee separation is called as a involuntary separation. So that is not the point of view of a employee side. That means employer makes relationship close. That means there is an end of a relationship between employer and employee. So when employment relationship between the employer and employee terminates or close to end or comes to end, that case of a separation is called as involuntary separation. There may be number of reasons of involuntary separation, like employee does not fit with the requirement of a particular job. That means a particular job, when one employee is appointed, he or she is not able to perform as per the requirement of the organization. That means that employee does not fit the requirement. In that case, the employee separated. Or due to economic necessity, if there is a case of a scarcity or financial crisis is there, then organization provides the instruction that you may no more require to provide job in our organization. So that is a case of involuntary separation. So that involuntary separation is further divided into different categories. One is coming under dismissal, second one is layoff, third one is right sizing or downsizing. So we will discuss everything one by one. So what do you mean by dismissal? Dismissal, or that is a case of a discharge. That means separating the employee from the payroll due to unsatisfactory performance, where the employee fails to perform his duty well and he is not properly skilled to perform his job, or due to violation of the organization rule. It means indiscipline, dishonesty. So dismissal, or it is otherwise called as a discharge. That means the organization separate the employee due to unsatisfactory performance of the employee. That means employee, whatever the duties or responsibility assigned by the organization, employee fails to perform his responsibility or perform his duties better or well, and he is not properly skilled to perform his the detailed tasks or the assignment what the organization has been given, or in that case due to any violation, or the employee does not follow the rules and regulation or the guidelines implemented by the organization. That means there is a case of a violation or overconfident. The employee thinks that he may knows everything. So in that case, the employer or the organization force that employee to quit the organization, and that is a case of a discharge. So discharge basically made in the organization due to indiscipline or dishonesty. So whatever may be the cause of a dismissal or discharge, it must have been made at the last stage, and the employee must have to be separated from the organization. The next part is layoff. It is generally done to reduce the financial burden of the organization by temporarily removing the surplus employee. In certain cases, there is a financial crisis made in the organization, and if organization having surplus employees in each department or in a particular department, then in that case organization wants to lay off that employee to minimize the financial burden. So that is a case of a layoff. So when the financial burden is there, temporary removement or temporary removing the surplus employee from the organization, and that is done due to inability of the employee and to recruit them due to shortage of sufficient resources. So either a case of inability of the employee or due to shortage of resources of the organization, the layoff process is done in the organization, and that layoff results in a great loss to the organization because that had to suffer all the expenses of a selection, placement or training. So as layoff is made in the organization, that causes a serious amount of a loss or a huge amount of a loss, because the employee, those are recruited during the time of a selection, training, motivation or placement, organization incurred huge amount of expenditure for that employee. But after that, any financial burden or crisis is there and there is a surplus of employee or inability of the employee performance, so organization lay off that employee. So for that reason, that results in a huge amount of a financial loss for the organization. Then the third process of involuntary separation is right sizing or downsizing. That means organization or the company restructure the business to a certain extent by cutting down the cost or reducing the workforce. So downsizing or right sizing, it refers to the process in which corporation or company restructure the business by cutting down the cost, reduces the workforce or reorganizing the upper level of management with a view to maximize the profit. So when organization thinks that there is a restructuring, corporate restructuring is done, in that case the downsizing process must have been implemented. That means to reduce the manpower and to merge with another organization so that the cost may be reduced and the synergy effect has been made. So this type of separation is called as a right sizing or downsizing. Basically, in case of a corporate restructuring that has been made and the organization has been made that to reduce the workforce or reorganizing the top level management so as to maximize the profit can be increased. So this is one type of a mechanism of a cost cutting by reducing the employee and hence cutting on salary and expenses. So when downsizing is made, in that case the employee reduced and another one is the salary or other expenses of the organization also reduced to certain extent. So this is all part which we have discussed, that is relating to separation. Now we will going to discuss to layoff. What is that and what is the process? It is suspension or termination of employment with or without notice. So when organization provides a notice or without providing notice, suspend the employee or terminate the employee, or that is a case of a termination of employment, that is called as a layoff. So basically it is made by the employer or by the management. Layoffs are not caused by any fault of the employees. So that is not made on account of employee's fault, but that is made by the employer. So organization or the employer thinks or management thinks that they must have been terminated. So that process has been made, but due to lack of work, cash or material, organization makes that type of a termination process. But as per Industrial Dispute Act 1947, layoff means temporary removal of employees because of a deficit or shortage of inputs. So Industrial Dispute Act provides that when there is a case of a temporary removal, that means after removing the employee within a certain period, the employee also or the organization also recruited that employee for the organization. So there is a case of a temporary removal for certain period, and when the period completes, then that existing employee also re-enters to the organization. Okay. Because of deficit and shortage of inputs which are related to productivity or breakdown, when there is a case of less productivity or there is a case of a breakdown of machinery or any natural calamity, organization thinks that layoff process must have been made, and that does not mean that they are terminated from the job. They will recruit after the organization revives. Such employee could be reinstated after deficit or reviving or shortage which affected productivity. So next we are going to discuss what is the reason of employee layoff. That means why organization or the management terminate the employee for certain temporary period. Employee layoff is usually undertaken to streamline the organization operation by reducing the labor cost. When organization thinks that there must be streamline of organizational activity and there is a case of reducing labor cost, in that case organization make that process of a layoff. The term downsizing having a meaning similar to layoff. So layoff similar to downsizing, and that often used to eliminate the jobs so that company expenditure can can be restructured. So that means when employee separated or there is a case of layoff, in that case certain expenditure can be reduced and also company can be restructured. And wherever there are many common reasons for temporary suspension or permanent termination of employee from their duty. So in certain cases organization also make the layoff process for permanent termination due to the defective performance or negligence of the duty. So that includes shortage of raw material, power accumulation of stocks, breakdown of machinery, ongoing construction, lack of resources or financial crisis, right sizing, excess operating expenses, surplus overheads, merger or acquisition, job redesigning, streamlining in the organizational operation. So these are the basic reason when the employee separation is made. Maybe there is a case of a shortage of raw material, maybe shortage of power, or there is a case of accumulation of stock, or there is a case of a breakdown of machinery, or lack of financial resources or any other resources, or there is a case of a restructuring, maybe merger, acquisition, joint venture, or downsizing. So or maybe there is a case of a surplus overhead. So whatever may be the situation, if organization thinks that there is a case of a layoff process has been made, so due to this reason or any several reasons, the organization make that process of a layoff process, and that is the main reason for which employee layoff from the organization. So this is our today's discussion relating to separation, types of separation, layoff, and the reason for which employee layoff from the organization. In our next class, we will discuss the other parts relating to layoff and retrenchment. Till then, thank you. Bye bye.